The most powerful man in the city disappeared for one night, and when he returned, he was no longer the same person. Adrian Kang had spent his entire life surrounded by luxury, influence, and people who carefully chose every word they spoke around him. As the leader of a powerful organization and a man whose name carried weight in every room he entered, Adrian believed he understood human nature better than anyone. He believed people respected him because of who he was. He believed loyalty could be measured by actions, promises, and the opportunities he provided. But deep inside, a question had been growing for years. If everything disappeared, if his money, reputation, and power vanished overnight, would anyone still see him as a person worth caring about? That question followed Adrian until one quiet evening when he made a decision that surprised even those closest to him. He left behind the expensive suits, the luxury car, and the identity that opened every door. Dressed in simple, worn clothing, he walked through the city as someone nobody noticed. For the first time in years, Adrian Kang was invisible. The reactions were immediate. People passed by without looking. Some avoided him. Others simply continued with their own lives. It was a world completely different from the one Adrian knew. In his usual life, people waited for his attention. Now, he waited for someone to notice he existed. The experience was uncomfortable, but that was exactly why he chose it. Adrian wanted to discover the truth about the people around him. He wanted to know who offered kindness when there was nothing to gain. As the evening became colder, Adrian found himself sitting near a small neighborhood street, where the sounds of ordinary life continued around him. Then he noticed someone who was different from everyone else. Her name was Jasmine Carter. She was a curvy black woman who worked long hours at a small local restaurant. She carried the exhaustion of someone who had responsibilities, worries, and dreams of her own. Yet when she saw Adrian sitting alone, she did not walk past him. She stopped. She did not ask how much money he had. She did not ask what connections he could offer. She simply asked a question Adrian had not heard in a very long time. "Are you okay?" Those 3 words surprised him more than he expected. Jasmine offered him a warm meal and a place to sit for a few minutes. She spoke to him with the same respect she would give anyone else. To her, he was not a powerful businessman. He was not someone important. He was simply a person having a difficult night. Adrian watched her carefully, trying to understand why someone who had so little time for herself would spend it helping a stranger. Jasmine did not know his name. She did not know the world he came from. She did not know that the man sitting in front of her controlled businesses, made decisions that affected many lives, and was considered untouchable by most people. And that was exactly what made her kindness different. For the first time in years, Adrian experienced something he could never buy: genuine compassion. As he looked at Jasmine walking back toward her small restaurant, he realized something that unsettled him. The person with the least interest in his power was the only person who had shown him true respect. And Adrian Kang was about to discover that the woman everyone overlooked would become the person who changed the way he saw the entire world. The next morning, Adrian Kang found himself thinking about a moment that should have been ordinary. A simple question from a stranger. A warm meal from someone who expected nothing in return. A few minutes of conversation that should have disappeared from his memory. But for Adrian, those small gestures stayed with him, because they revealed something he had spent years ignoring. He had surrounded himself with people who knew his position, but he had rarely met someone who saw him without it. After returning to his private world, Adrian expected everything to feel normal again. The familiar walls, the expensive furniture, and the people waiting for his instructions were all exactly as they had been before. Yet something felt different. The silence inside his home felt heavier than it ever had. He kept remembering Jasmine Carter's expression when she offered him kindness. There was no hesitation in her eyes, no calculation, no curiosity about what she could gain. She simply believed every person deserved basic respect. Adrian decided to learn more about her, not because he wanted to reward her, but because he wanted to understand why she was different. He quietly discovered that Jasmine lived a life far removed from his own. She worked long hours at a small restaurant, often arriving early and leaving late. She helped coworkers when they were overwhelmed and always found time to check on people around her. What surprised Adrian most was that Jasmine's kindness was not because life had been easy for her, it was because life had taught her the importance of compassion. She had experienced moments when people judged her before knowing her story. Some looked at her appearance and made assumptions. Others underestimated her because she did not come from wealth or influence. But Jasmine never allowed those opinions to define her. She believed a person's value came from character, not from how others measured them. Adrian watched from a distance and realized something uncomfortable. The woman he had once considered ordinary possessed a strength that many powerful people lacked. She did not need attention to do the right thing. She did not need recognition to be generous. Her actions came from who she was, not from what she wanted others to think of her. Meanwhile, Adrian's own world began showing him a different reality. People around him praised him constantly, but he started questioning whether those compliments were about him or about everything attached to his name. During an important business meeting, Adrian noticed how quickly people agreed with his opinions. In the past, he saw that as loyalty. Now, he wondered if anyone would speak honestly if he was no longer the person in control. That thought stayed with him long after the meeting ended. For the first time, Adrian was not searching for more power. He was searching for something he could not command: trust. That evening, he returned to the same neighborhood where he had met Jasmine. He did not wear expensive clothing. He did not bring anything that revealed his identity. He simply wanted another conversation with the one person who had treated him like everyone else. When Jasmine saw him again, she smiled naturally. She did not know why he had returned. She did not know the questions he was carrying inside. She only welcomed him as the same person she had met before. And that simple acceptance made Adrian realize that his disguise had revealed more than other people's true nature. It had revealed his own. Because for the first time, Adrian Kang was beginning to understand that the greatest difference between a powerful person and a truly respected person was not what they could control. It was what they could give without expecting anything back. Adrian Kang had spent years believing that people revealed their true intentions through what they wanted from him. In his world, every conversation had a purpose. Every favor carried an expectation. Every smile seemed connected to an opportunity. But after meeting Jasmine Carter, Adrian began to question everything he thought he understood about human nature. She had no reason to impress him. She had no idea who he was. Yet she treated him with a level of kindness that many people with everything to gain had never shown him. Each evening, Adrian returned to the neighborhood, still wearing simple clothes and keeping his identity hidden. He told himself he was only trying to understand Jasmine's perspective, but deep down, he knew he was searching for something he had lost long ago, a connection that was not built on power. During their conversations, Adrian slowly learned more about Jasmine's life. She talked about her work, her dreams, and the small moments that made her happy. She never complained about the challenges she faced. Instead, she focused on the people around her and the ways she could make their days a little easier. Adrian noticed something unusual. Jasmine did not see kindness as something impressive. To her, kindness was simply a responsibility people had toward one another. One evening, while they sat outside the restaurant after her shift, Adrian asked her a question he had never asked anyone before. "Why do you help people you do not know?" Jasmine looked surprised by the question. She thought for a moment before answering. "Because everyone has a story you cannot see." Those words stayed with Adrian. In his world, he had always been judged by what people could see: his success, his influence, his reputation. But Jasmine reminded him that every person carried something invisible: a struggle, a dream, a fear, a hope. Adrian realized that he had spent so much time protecting himself from being used that he had forgotten how to trust genuine kindness. Meanwhile, Jasmine began noticing that there was something unusual about Adrian. She did not know his real identity, but she sensed that he carried a heavy responsibility. There was a sadness behind his quiet expression, something that suggested he had spent years carrying burdens alone. Still, she never pushed him to explain. She respected his silence the same way she respected his presence. That simple acceptance surprised Adrian. Most people around him wanted information. Jasmine offered understanding instead. For the first time, Adrian experienced what it felt like to be accepted without having to prove his value. As the days passed, the distance between them slowly disappeared. Adrian began helping Jasmine with small things, not because he wanted to appear generous, but because he wanted to contribute. He learned that real generosity was not about making someone feel indebted, it was about standing beside them. One afternoon, Adrian saw Jasmine quietly helping an elderly customer who was struggling with a simple task. She did not announce it, she did not wait for praise. She simply helped and moved on. That moment revealed something powerful to him. Jasmine was not kind because she wanted people to notice her. She was kind because that was who she was. And that realization challenged Adrian more than anything else. The man who had spent years surrounded by people trying to prove their loyalty had finally found someone who proved her character without saying a word. But Adrian also knew the truth could not remain hidden forever. The longer he stayed close to Jasmine while pretending to be someone else, the more difficult it would become to explain why he had never told her who he really was. And soon, the secret that protected him would become the very thing that tested the trust he was beginning to build. The longer Adrian Kang stayed hidden behind a simple identity, the more he realized that the disguise he created was changing him in ways he never expected. At first, he believed he was only observing Jasmine Carter. He thought he was studying why someone with so little interest in power could show so much compassion. But slowly, he understood that Jasmine was not the person being tested anymore. He was. Every conversation with her forced Adrian to look at parts of himself he had ignored for years. The impatience, the distance, the belief that success made him different from everyone else. Jasmine never knew about the world Adrian came from, but somehow she understood something about him that even people close to him never noticed. She saw the person behind the quiet expression. One afternoon, Adrian arrived at the restaurant and found Jasmine helping a new employee who was struggling to adjust. She patiently explained the work, encouraged the young woman, and reminded her that everyone needed time to learn. Adrian watched from a distance, noticing how naturally Jasmine lifted others up. There was no performance, no desire for recognition. It was simply who she was. Later, as they talked outside the restaurant, Adrian asked her about her own experiences. Jasmine smiled softly and admitted that life had not always been easy. She had known what it felt like to be overlooked. She had experienced moments when people judged her before knowing her heart. But instead of allowing those experiences to make her bitter, she chose to become the kind of person she once needed. Adrian listened carefully. Her words stayed with him because they were the opposite of how he had lived. When people disappointed him, he built stronger walls. When Jasmine was disappointed, she built more understanding. "You know," Jasmine said, "sometimes the people who look the strongest are the ones who are afraid to let anyone see that they need help." Adrian became quiet. The words felt personal, even though she did not know his truth. For years, Adrian had believed showing vulnerability was dangerous. He thought a powerful person could never allow others to see uncertainty. But Jasmine saw strength differently. To her, strength was not pretending everything was perfect. Strength was being honest about what mattered. Meanwhile, Adrian's absence from his usual world began attracting attention. People close to him started wondering why he was spending time away from his normal responsibilities. They did not understand why a man like Adrian Kang would disappear into an ordinary neighborhood. Some believed he was wasting his time. Others believed there had to be a reason behind his actions. Adrian ignored their questions because, for the first time, he was focused on something that could not be measured in numbers. He was learning. However, the secret he carried was becoming heavier. Every time Jasmine smiled at him, every time she shared a personal story, every time she trusted him with a small piece of her life, Adrian felt the weight of what he had not told her. He knew the truth would eventually come out, and he feared that when Jasmine discovered that the person she had treated with kindness was actually a powerful man hiding behind a false identity, she would feel betrayed. That night, Adrian stood outside his home, looking over the city he controlled. For the first time, the buildings and lights that once represented success felt distant. He thought about Jasmine's words and realized something important. He had spent years building a life where nobody could hurt him, but he had also built a life where nobody could truly reach him. And the one person who had reached him was the person who never knew his name. The secret Adrian Kang carried began to feel heavier with every passing day. What started as a simple test of human nature had become something far more meaningful. He no longer returned to Jasmine Carter because he wanted answers. He returned because for the first time in years, he looked forward to being somewhere he did not have to pretend. Around Jasmine, he was not a powerful figure surrounded by expectations. He was simply Adrian, a man who could sit quietly, listen, and have a conversation without wondering what someone wanted from him. But the closer he became to Jasmine, the more difficult it became to hide the truth. He knew that one day she would discover who he really was, and he worried that everything they had built would change in that moment. Meanwhile, Jasmine continued treating Adrian with the same kindness she had shown from the beginning. She never asked for explanations about his past. She never tried to discover his secrets. She respected the boundaries he created, even when she sensed there was more to his story. That patience affected Adrian deeply, because it was something he rarely experienced. Most people around him tried to get closer to his power. Jasmine gave him space because she respected him as a person. One evening, Adrian found Jasmine sitting alone outside the restaurant after closing. She looked tired after a long day, but she still smiled when she saw him. He asked if she was always this kind to everyone. Jasmine laughed softly and said, "I am not perfect. I have difficult days too, but I know what it feels like when nobody notices you. I do not want someone else to feel that way." Adrian became silent. Her answer reminded him of the night they first met. The world had looked right through him when he appeared to have nothing. Yet Jasmine had stopped because she saw a person instead of a situation. For years, Adrian believed power was the reason people respected him. Jasmine was teaching him that respect earned through kindness was far more valuable. As their friendship grew, Adrian began changing small parts of his own life. He started listening more during meetings instead of immediately giving orders. He became more aware of the people who worked around him. He noticed the employees who were often ignored and began asking about their experiences. His closest associates noticed the difference. They did not understand why Adrian, a man known for being focused and controlled, suddenly cared about things he once considered insignificant. But Adrian understood. He was not becoming weaker. He was becoming more aware. Still, one problem remained. Jasmine believed she knew Adrian as an ordinary man facing a difficult time. She did not know that the person sitting across from her was someone many people feared and respected. Adrian wondered how she would react if she learned the truth. Would she think every conversation had been a lie? Would she believe his kindness was just another part of a hidden plan? Those questions followed him everywhere. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. A familiar face from Adrian's world appeared near the restaurant and recognized him immediately. The person did not reveal anything yet, but the look in their eyes told Adrian that his secret was no longer safe. The life he had carefully separated into two worlds was about to collide. And Adrian knew that when Jasmine discovered the truth, he would finally learn whether her kindness was meant for the man with power or the man she believed was simply in need of help. The moment Adrian Kang feared finally arrived when the distance between his two worlds began to disappear. For weeks, he had lived between two identities. One was the powerful man whose name carried influence across the city. The other was simply Adrian, the quiet stranger who sat with Jasmine Carter and listened to her stories. He had convinced himself that he could keep those worlds separate, but he was beginning to understand that honesty could not be delayed forever. The person who recognized him outside the restaurant was someone from his inner circle. They did not say anything in front of Jasmine, but the surprise in their expression was enough to tell Adrian that his secret had been discovered. That evening, Adrian returned to the neighborhood with a heavy feeling in his heart. Jasmine noticed immediately that something was different. She had always been observant, and she could tell when someone was carrying a burden. "Something is bothering you," she said gently. Adrian looked at her and realized that this moment was the one he had been avoiding. He could continue hiding and protect the connection they had built for a little longer, or he could finally show her the truth and accept whatever happened next. For years, Adrian had believed control was the key to avoiding disappointment. But Jasmine had taught him that real connections could not exist without trust. "There is something I need to tell you," Adrian said. Jasmine looked at him quietly, waiting. Adrian took a breath and revealed the truth. He told her that he was not the person she thought he was. He explained that his name was Adrian Kang, that he was the owner of several major businesses, and that the simple clothing and quiet life she had seen were part of a choice he had made to understand people without his reputation influencing their actions. Jasmine listened without interrupting. The silence between them felt longer than Adrian expected. Finally, she asked the question he feared most. "So every conversation we had was part of a test?" Adrian immediately shook his head. "At first, maybe I was looking for answers, but then something changed. I stopped looking at you as someone who could teach me something. I started seeing you as someone I truly cared about." Jasmine looked away for a moment. She was not impressed by his wealth. She was not excited by his status. Instead, she felt something more complicated. She felt hurt that he had trusted her kindness while hiding such an important part of himself. "Adrian, the reason I helped you was because I thought you were a person who needed kindness, not because you were someone powerful." Her words stayed with him because they were exactly what he needed to hear. He realized that even though his intentions had changed, the beginning of their relationship had been built on a secret. Jasmine needed time to understand that. For the first time, Adrian did not try to fix the situation with influence, money, or promises. He simply accepted her feelings. "I understand," he said. "You have every right to feel this way." That response surprised Jasmine because she expected him to defend himself. Instead, he respected her emotions. In that moment, she saw something different in him. The powerful man was still there, but so was the person she had come to know. The person who was learning humility. As Adrian walked away that night, he understood that earning forgiveness would not be about proving who he was. It would be about proving who he was becoming. And for the first time, he was willing to do that without expecting anything in return. After Adrian Kang revealed the truth, the silence between him and Jasmine Carter became the hardest thing he had ever experienced. In his world, Adrian was used to solving problems quickly. He could negotiate agreements, make difficult decisions, and control situations that seemed impossible to others. But this was different. Jasmine was not a problem to solve. She was a person whose trust he had to earn, and for the first time, Adrian understood that some things could not be repaired with influence or resources. They could only be repaired with patience. In the days that followed, Adrian gave Jasmine the space she needed. He did not send expensive gifts. He did not use his position to convince her. He did not ask others to speak on his behalf. He simply respected her decision and waited. That choice surprised many people around him, because the Adrian they knew was someone who always moved with certainty. But the man Jasmine had met was learning that respect sometimes meant stepping back. Jasmine spent those days thinking about everything that had happened. She remembered the stranger sitting alone on the street. She remembered the conversations they shared, and the moments when Adrian seemed genuinely grateful for simple kindness. She knew his feelings had become real, but she also struggled with the fact that their connection began with a secret. What mattered to Jasmine was not his wealth or his status. She had proven that from the beginning. What mattered was whether she could trust the person behind those things. Eventually, Adrian returned to the restaurant, not expecting anything from her. He simply wanted to apologize again. "I should have trusted you enough to tell you the truth sooner," he said. "You showed me kindness when I had nothing to offer you, and I should have respected you enough to be honest." Jasmine listened carefully. She noticed something different about him. Before, Adrian always spoke like someone protecting himself. Now he spoke like someone accepting responsibility. "Do you understand why I was hurt?" she asked. Adrian nodded. "Yes, because you gave me something genuine, and I was afraid that if you knew who I was, everything would change." Jasmine looked at him quietly. "And you still have not answered the most important question." Adrian waited. "Would you have treated me the same way if you knew my name from the beginning?" she asked. Adrian thought about it. The honest answer was difficult. Before meeting Jasmine, he might have assumed she wanted something from him. He might have viewed her kindness through the same suspicion he applied to everyone else. "I do not know," he admitted, "but I know meeting you changed the way I see people." That honesty meant more to Jasmine than a perfect answer. She did not need him to pretend he had always been different. She needed him to recognize who he had been and choose to become better. Slowly, the distance between them began to close. Not because everything was suddenly forgotten, but because Adrian was finally building the relationship the right way. He listened more, he shared more. He allowed Jasmine to see the parts of him that were not connected to power or success. Meanwhile, people from Adrian's world started noticing the changes. The man who once measured everything by loyalty and results was now making decisions based on compassion. Some questioned whether he was becoming too soft. But Adrian no longer saw kindness as weakness. He saw it as the quality he had been missing all along. One evening, Jasmine looked at him and smiled. "You are different now." Adrian smiled back. "No. I think I am finally becoming the person I should have been." And for the first time, Jasmine believed that the man standing before her was not hiding behind a disguise. He was simply Adrian. But neither of them knew that the biggest challenge was still ahead. Because the world that created Adrian's old identity was about to discover the woman who changed him, and not everyone would understand why the most powerful man in the city valued the kindness of someone they once overlooked. The world Adrian Kang once controlled began to look different after Jasmine Carter entered his life. For years, Adrian believed power was the foundation of respect. He thought people followed him because of his decisions, his achievements, and the influence he had built. But Jasmine showed him something he never learned from success. True respect was not created through fear or admiration. It was created through understanding. As Adrian slowly changed, the people around him began noticing. His business partners saw a man who listened more carefully before making decisions. His employees noticed that he started asking questions instead of simply giving instructions. The same man who once walked through every room expecting attention was now paying attention to others. Some people admired the change. Others questioned it. They wondered why Adrian Kang, a man known for his discipline and ambition, was spending so much time with a woman who had no connection to his world of wealth and influence. But Adrian no longer measured people by what they could provide him. He had learned that the most valuable people were often the ones who expected nothing in return. When Jasmine eventually met some of the people from Adrian's world, she immediately noticed the difference between them and the people she knew. Many looked at relationships as opportunities. Many were curious about what someone could offer. Jasmine did not feel comfortable in that environment, but she never allowed herself to feel less important. She carried the same confidence she had always shown. She knew her worth did not come from a title, a bank account, or the approval of others. Adrian admired that about her. He had spent his entire life surrounded by people trying to prove their importance, while Jasmine never needed to prove anything. One evening, Adrian invited Jasmine to a quiet dinner, away from the attention of his usual circles. He wanted her to see a different side of his life, not the public image people knew, but the person behind it. He told her about the pressure he carried from a young age. He explained that being powerful often meant being alone, because people rarely showed him their honest feelings. Jasmine listened carefully. She did not judge him for his past. She simply reminded him that understanding where his choices came from did not mean he had to remain the same person forever. "Your past explains you," she said, "but it does not have to control who you become." Those words stayed with Adrian. They were simple, but they carried a truth he had avoided for years. He had always believed changing meant admitting weakness. Jasmine helped him understand that changing could also mean growing. Meanwhile, the people closest to Adrian began seeing that Jasmine was not someone who needed to be protected or rescued. She was someone who had already built her own strength. She was not important because Adrian valued her. Adrian valued her because she had always been important. The difference changed everything. As their relationship became stronger, Adrian faced a final decision. He could continue keeping Jasmine separate from his public life, protecting her from judgment and questions. Or he could openly acknowledge the person who had changed him, even if it meant challenging the expectations of everyone around him. For years, Adrian had protected his reputation at all costs. But now he understood something far more important. A reputation could impress strangers, but character was what remained when nobody was watching. And soon, Adrian Kang would have to decide whether he was ready to show the world the woman who taught him the meaning of genuine kindness. The day Adrian Kang decided to introduce Jasmine Carter to the world was not about proving anything to anyone. It was not about showing that a powerful man had found someone special. It was about acknowledging the person who had changed the way he understood life. For years, Adrian had believed that strength came from control. He believed a person had to protect their image, hide uncertainty, and always appear untouchable. But Jasmine had shown him a different kind of strength. The strength to be honest, the strength to listen, the strength to care without expecting anything in return. The event was filled with people who had known Adrian for years. Business partners, friends, and members of his inner circle gathered, expecting the same confident man they had always seen. But when Adrian arrived with Jasmine beside him, the atmosphere changed. Many people were surprised. They knew Jasmine was not from Adrian's world of wealth and influence. They wondered what made her different. But Jasmine walked into the room with the same quiet confidence she had always carried. She did not try to impress anyone. She did not change herself to fit into a place that was unfamiliar. She simply remained the person Adrian had admired from the beginning. When Adrian stood before everyone, he did not talk about success or power. He talked about a lesson he had learned. For most of my life, I believed people respected me because of what I had built, Adrian said. But I learned that the people who truly matter are the ones who respect you when there is nothing they can gain. The room became silent as he continued. Adrian spoke about how one person's kindness had changed his perspective. He did not reveal every detail of his journey, but he made it clear that Jasmine had shown him something his success never could. She showed him the value of being seen as a person, not as a position. Jasmine listened quietly. She did not need public recognition. She never helped Adrian because she wanted attention. But hearing him acknowledge the importance of kindness meant something to her, because it proved that he had truly understood. After the event, Adrian and Jasmine walked outside together. The city lights surrounded them, but the moment felt peaceful. I used to think I needed to have everything under control, Adrian admitted. Now I realize I was afraid of losing things I never truly owned. Jasmine looked at him and smiled. And what do you think you have now? Adrian thought about the answer. Something real. Their journey had not been perfect. There were still things they had to learn about each other. There were still differences between their worlds. But the foundation was different now. It was built on honesty instead of assumptions, respect instead of expectations. As time passed, people around Adrian noticed the transformation. The powerful man who once measured everything by influence had become someone who valued compassion. He was still successful, he was still respected, but he was no longer defined only by those things. Jasmine never changed Adrian by demanding anything from him. She changed him by showing him kindness when he had nothing to offer. She reminded him that every person carried a story, and every person deserved to be treated with dignity. In the end, Adrian discovered the truth he had been searching for when he gave up his identity for one night. The world had not shown him who could benefit from his power. It had shown him who could see his humanity. And the woman everyone else overlooked became the person who helped the most powerful man in the room finally understand what it meant to be truly respected.